That urge to text them is not random. It is not you being weak. It is your nervous system trying to end uncertainty as fast as possible. When an avoidant pulls back, goes quiet, delays replies, or changes tone, your anxious system reads it as danger. And the fastest way the anxious system knows how to reduce danger is contact. A message, a check-in, a question, a soft apology, a joke, something that restores proximity. The problem is that in avoidant and anxious dynamics, the urge to text is often the exact move that keeps the loop alive. So in this episode, I'm going to give you a simple rule that stops you from sending the message that makes you spiral, and replaces it with a structure that protects your dignity and increases the odds of a clean return, if a return is even possible. Because here is the hard truth. The goal is not to win the moment. The goal is to stop being trained. Now let's make this painfully clear, because your brain will try to rationalize texting as maturity. The anxious urge to text is rarely about love. It is about regulation. It is your brain trying to get relief from the feeling of being suspended. And the avoidant withdrawal is rarely about not caring. It is about control and safety. Closeness creates exposure. Exposure creates pressure. Pressure creates the urge to regain autonomy. So when you text in the peak of activation, you are not creating connection. You are feeding both systems. You feed your anxiety with a temporary hit of relief, and you feed their avoidance system with evidence that distance buys them more control. That is why this pattern feels addictive. It is a reward schedule. Silence creates tension. A reply creates relief. Relief feels like love. Your brain starts chasing relief. So the first thing you need is a rule that breaks the reward schedule. Here is the rule. Delay action when activated. Delay action when activated. This is the move that saves you. Delay does not mean ignore. Delay means regulate first, then decide. And the decision is based on one question. What behavior am I rewarding if I send this? If sending this rewards withdrawal with attention, do not send it. If sending this sets a clean standard without trying to control the outcome, you can send one short line and then stop. That is the entire difference between power and panic. Now let's slow down and make this real, because your mind will say, okay, but what if I lose them? That fear is real. But here is the clean truth. If you lose someone because you required predictability and repair, you did not lose a stable bond. You lost a dynamic that required you to stay activated to keep it alive. You can hold a person for a long time, but you cannot feel loved while you are holding them. Love requires a free yes. And a free yes shows up as sustained behavior, not as intense moments followed by absence, not as closeness you have to earn repeatedly, not as comfort that disappears when you need something. So the rule is not a game. It is protection. It protects your nervous system, and it reveals capacity. Because capacity is what you must base your choices on. Not chemistry, not potential, not the last goodnight, not the way they looked at you, not the version of them you keep replaying. Capacity is shown through pattern. So if you want to stop being trapped by the urge to text, you need to understand what the urge is actually trying to accomplish. The urge is trying to complete an open loop. Your brain hates uncertainty, because uncertainty is biologically expensive. When a person is consistent, your brain builds a stable model of them. Prediction lowers stress. When a person is inconsistent, your brain cannot build a stable model. It gets stuck in prediction failure. Every interaction becomes a data point that does not match the last data point. That instability forces your brain to stay engaged because it keeps trying to solve the pattern. This is why you can feel obsessed even if you don't want to be. It is not only desire, it is cognitive labor. It is your nervous system trying to create safety by understanding. And one of the fastest ways your brain tries to create safety is to reach out and get data. But here is the twist. With avoidant patterns, reaching out often gives you confusing data. You might get warmth, then nothing. You might get a casual reply, then more distance. You might get a breadcrumb, then silence. That keeps the loop open. So your goal is not more data. Your goal is better data. Better data comes from boundaries and standards, not from chasing responses. Now, let's define the two kinds of texting, because not all messages are equal. There is anxious texting, and there is structured texting. Anxious texting is driven by relief seeking. It usually contains one of three energies: explanation, apology, or pursuit. Explanation is when you over-clarify, over-explain your feelings, your intentions, your meaning, hoping they will finally understand and come close. Apology is when you take responsibility for things you didn't do, just to reduce tension and restore closeness. Pursuit is when you try to pull them back through sweetness, jokes, checking in, asking for reassurance, asking what's wrong, asking where you stand. All three are trying to accomplish the same thing: reduce uncertainty quickly. But they often create the opposite outcome with avoidance. They signal pressure. They signal demand. They signal that your nervous system is now reaching for them as the regulator. That is what makes avoidance pull back harder. Structured texting is different. Structured texting is not relief-seeking. It is truth-telling with boundaries. It is short. It is calm. It is one message, no follow-ups, no chase, no emotional flooding, and it is aligned with a standard. Structured texting is not a conversation starter. It is a line that clarifies the contract. So, if you want a relationship that does not destroy your nervous system, you have to stop sending messages that try to buy closeness, and you have to start communicating in a way that filters for capacity. Now we need to address something important. Many anxious people think their problem is that they care too much. That is not the problem. The problem is that they act at the peak. They act when activated. They treat urgency as truth. Urgency is not truth. Urgency is a body state. When your body is activated, your mind becomes a prosecutor or a beggar. It becomes dramatic internally, even if you are trying to look calm externally. You start telling yourself stories. They're gone. They don't care. I said the wrong thing. I need to fix this. I need to say something now or I'll lose them. That is not intuition. That is nervous system alarm. So, the rule, delay action when activated, is a nervous system skill. It is not a dating trick. It is learning to let the alarm pass before you speak. Because if you speak from alarm, you create more alarm. Now, how long is the delay? The number is less important than the principle. You need enough time for your nervous system to drop out of fight-flight. For some people, that is 30 minutes. For some, it is 3 hours. For some, it is overnight. So, here is the practical version. When the urge hits, you do not touch your phone for messaging. You do not open the chat. You do not type drafts into the thread. You create distance from the trigger. Then, you regulate. A walk, a shower, a meal, a workout, breath, writing, a task, something that returns you to your body. And then you ask the question, what behavior am I rewarding if I send this? If it rewards withdrawal with attention, you do not send it. If it sets a clean standard, you send one short line and then stop. Now, what is a clean standard line? It is not a threat. It is not a lecture. It is not a long paragraph. It is a simple boundary tied to behavior. Here are examples of the structure, without giving you a scripted copy-paste. You name what you want, you name what you will do, and you stop. You don't ask for reassurance, you don't plead, you don't debate, you don't negotiate. Because negotiation is what keeps you stuck. So your message might be something like, I like you, and I'm open to this, but I only do it with consistent communication. Let me know if you want to continue in a steady way. Then you stop. Or it might be, I'm not available for hot and cold. If you want to reconnect, I need it to be clear. Then you stop. The content can vary, but the structure stays. Calm truth, clear standard, no chase. Now, your anxious system will hate this because it feels like you're doing nothing. But you're not doing nothing. You're changing the contract. You're telling your nervous system, we do not buy closeness with panic. We align access with behavior. That is how you stop being trained. Now, let's talk about why the urge to text feels unbearable, because understanding it reduces shame. The anxious system regulates threat through proximity. It regulates discomfort by increasing contact. It regulates uncertainty by seeking reassurance. This is not weakness. It is a strategy that once kept you bonded to caregivers. As a child, closeness meant safety. If closeness felt threatened, you increased proximity. That strategy makes sense in secure environments, but in avoidant environments, it becomes a trap. Because the exact move that calms you activates them. And the exact move that calms them activates you. One person's safety is closeness. The other person's safety is space. So the system becomes a push-pull. You reach, they retreat. They retreat, you reach harder. That is the loop. And texting in the peak is often the reach. So the first win is not getting them back. The first win is not sending the text. Because every time you don't send the panic text, you build self-trust. And self-trust is what calms an anxious system long-term. Most anxious people don't need more reassurance from the other person. They need evidence that they can regulate themselves and still be loved. That is what changes the baseline. Now let's go into the avoidance side, because this is where people get confused and personalize everything. Avoidant silence often has two layers. There is the surface layer, which is the story. I'm busy, I need space, I'm overwhelmed, I'm not good at texting, I don't like pressure. And those phrases can be honest. But the deeper layer is nervous system math. Closeness equals stakes. Stakes equals vulnerability. Vulnerability equals loss of control. So distance equals safety. When you see it that way, you stop taking silence as a verdict on your worth. You start seeing it as a strategy. And strategies can be responded to with structure. But here's the boundary line you must hold. You can understand someone's strategy without living inside it. Compassion does not mean compliance. Compassion means you don't demonize them. Compliance is when you keep giving full access to part-time behavior. So the leverage is learning to be kind without being easy. Kind without being easy. That is how you keep your warmth without leaking your dignity. Now, let's address the biggest mistake that destroys anxious people. They treat small signals as proof. A like, a story view, a random check-in, a late-night message, a casual hello. Those are cues of access, not cues of repair. And if you respond to access with full intimacy, you teach the pattern that it can stay vague. This is where your standards matter. Proximity without consequence is not love. It is access. Love is behavior plus repair. If you want a return that is real, you have to become allergic to returns that come with the same contract. Not because you are punishing, because you are building a relationship environment where your nervous system can relax. Now, I want to give you a map for what to do in the exact moment your mind says, text them. Because the moment matters. The moment is where you either reinforce the loop or you break it. Step 1. Label the state. I am activated. This is an alarm. This urge is not a command. It is a cue to return to structure. Step 2. Implement the delay. Set a timer, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, overnight. During the delay, do a stabilizing action that does not involve them. Movement, hydration, food, shower, task, breath. Step 3. Answer the one question. What behavior am I rewarding if I send this? Step 4. Choose one of two paths. Path A, no message. If the message would reward withdrawal, you do nothing and you return to your life. Path B, one standard message. If the message is necessary to clarify a boundary or close a loop in a clean way, you send one short line and then stop. No follow-up, no explanation, no second text, no checking if they saw it. Because the moment you chase, you teach your nervous system that anxiety is a command. And you teach the other person that distance buys attention. Now, this is where people ask, okay, but what if they never come back? Here is the truth. Your job is not to guarantee their return. Your job is to guarantee your dignity and your nervous system stability. And paradoxically, that is the only environment where an avoidant can actually choose you with less fear, because they are choosing into a structure, not into chaos. When you are chaotic, they feel trapped. When you are cold, they feel unsafe. The way through the door is not more emotion and not less emotion. It is clean emotion with respect for autonomy. Clean emotion means you say what is true without flooding. Autonomy respect means you do not chase and you do not force decisions at the peak. That combination is rare. And because it is rare, it changes the pattern. Now, let's talk about what happens after you stop texting in panic, because you need to know what to expect or your brain will relapse. At first, your anxiety may spike. You will feel withdrawal. You will feel like you are losing control. That is normal. Your brain is used to regulating through contact. When you remove the behavior, it protests. But if you hold the line, something shifts. You start to feel a different kind of power. Not the power of controlling them, the power of controlling you. And that changes your energy. Because anxious energy is not just what you do, it is what your body is broadcasting. When you stop chasing, your nervous system becomes steadier. Steadiness is what this dynamic cannot survive unless it evolves. So either the relationship evolves or the illusion breaks. Both outcomes protect you. Now, I want to address something that will make this even more relatable. The urge to text is often fueled by mental movies. You replay what you said. You replay what they said. You imagine them forgetting you. You imagine them with someone else. You imagine the last moment. You imagine what you should have done. That movie is your brain trying to complete an open loop. So here is a second rule that supports the first. Replace why with what. When your brain is spiraling into why, bring it back to what. What did they do? What pattern repeated? What happened after closeness? What happened when I expressed a need? What happened when there was conflict? Those questions create closure because they stop you from negotiating with mystery. Mystery is gasoline for texting urges. Patterns are water. So if you want to be free, stop using photographs to predict the future. Use patterns. Patterns show what someone can sustain, not what they can feel in a moment. And once you see what someone can sustain, the urge to text changes. Because you stop treating texting like a rescue mission. You start treating it like a filter. Now, let's get even more practical with a simple set of rules you can use, because you need something you can remember when you are activated. Rule 1. No texting when your body is hot. If your heart is racing, if your chest is tight, if you feel urgency, you wait. Rule 2. One message maximum. 1. No follow-ups. Rule 3. Do not text to get reassurance. Text only to communicate a standard or a clear plan. Rule 4. If they are silent, you do not fill the silence with explanations. Explanations do not create safety with avoidance. They create pressure. Rule 5. If you send a standard, you let behavior answer you. Because what they do next is the truth. Not what they said last time. Not what they promised. Not what you hope. What they do next. This is how you stop bleeding. Now, we need to talk about the last trap. People think they are being mature when they keep the door open forever. They think leaving the door open makes them loving. But what it often does is keep the nervous system in a waiting room. You stay half-attached. You stay available. You stay watchful. You stay in low-grade anxiety. That is not love. That is postponement. Closure is not a conversation you get from them. Closure is a decision you make with yourself. So if your mind keeps saying, text them, sometimes the real decision is not what message to send. The real decision is whether you are done living in a contract where your needs are optional. Because if you keep offering full access to part-time behavior, you train the pattern to continue. This is not about punishing anyone. It is about mechanics. Patterns repeat because they work. People do not keep patterns because they are evil. They keep patterns because the patterns get them what they want. Space without losing you. Comfort without accountability. Connection without consequence. So the brutal question that ends the loop is this: what am I making work for them? And then the follow-up question is more important. What am I making normal for me? Because every time you chase, you make anxiety normal. Every time you tolerate vagueness, you make vagueness normal. Every time you accept a breadcrumb as a return, you make crumbs normal. And your nervous system learns the rhythm you live in. So if you want to relax around someone, you have to live inside a rhythm that earns relaxation. Relaxation is not a mindset you force. Relaxation is a physiological signal that says, this environment is safe enough to stop monitoring. When you stop texting in panic, You are building an environment where your body can soften. You are becoming someone who follows through. Boundaries are the protector. When you become the protector, your nervous system calms. Now, let's close with a clean recap that you can actually remember in the moment, because the moment is everything. When your mind says, text them, do not argue with your mind. Do not shame yourself. Do not try to delete the urge. You treat the urge as a cue. The urge means your system is activated. You delay action. You regulate first. You ask what behavior you are rewarding. Then, you either send nothing or you send one short standard line and you stop. You do not chase, you do not follow up, you do not convert proximity into proof. You reward behavior. You reward repair. You reward steadiness. And if the relationship cannot survive steadiness, then it was never stable enough to hold you. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.